During Thanksgiving, my dill threw a plate at me after I refused to let her parents move into my house. "You old selfish man," she said, and my son added, "Don't call me your son anymore." I just smiled, got up, and called my brother. Phase 1 complete. The police arrived. The silence at the table felt deliberate, rehearsed. I'd brought wine, a decent Cabernet, and a pecan pie from the bakery Herbert used to love as a kid. Both sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Beulah carved the turkey with mechanical precision, her jaw set tight. Herbert wouldn't meet my eyes. Something was wrong. I'd felt it the moment I stepped through the door 20 minutes earlier. The house, a modest rental in Tempe they'd moved to 6 months ago, smelled right, looked normal. Roasted turkey, sweet potatoes, the usual. Thanksgiving spread, but the temperature was all wrong. Cold despite the Arizona heat outside. "Pass the rolls, please," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Herbert fumbled with the basket, nearly dropped it. His hands trembled slightly as he set it beside my plate. Beulah watched him with the focused intensity of a handler, watching a trained dog perform. "Your father asked for rolls, Herbert." Her tone was silk over steel. "Right, sorry. Here you go, Dad." I took one, buttered it slowly. 35 years as a prosecutor taught me patience. Taught me to wait for suspects to reveal themselves. Whatever this was, it would come out soon enough. They always told you eventually. They couldn't help themselves. Beulah set down her knife. "My parents are packing their things to move into your house." The butter knife paused halfway across the roll. I looked up. "Excuse me?" "They're losing their apartment." She said it like she was discussing the weather. Casual and final. "Your house has plenty of room. They'll move in by mid-December." Not a question, not a request, a statement of fact, delivered with the confidence of someone who believed the decision had already been made. "My house is not a hotel for strangers," I said. Beulah's fork froze midair. "Strangers? They're my parents. Your family." "My family doesn't make decisions about my property without asking me first." The air shifted. Herbert cleared his throat, a nervous sound that echoed in the sudden quiet. He glanced at Beulah, then at his plate, then at some point over my left shoulder. "Anywhere but at me. Dad, come on." His voice came out thin, stretched. "It's just temporary. They really need help. And you've got 4 bedrooms sitting empty." "I've got 4 bedrooms that I paid for." I set down my fork carefully, aligned it with the edge of my plate. "That doesn't obligate me to house anyone." "That's not fair." Herbert's face flushed. "Family helps family." I turned to look at my son fully for the first time that evening. Really looked at him. Saw the boy who used to build model airplanes at the kitchen table, who called me after every law school exam to dissect his answers. That boy was gone. The man sitting across from me had made different choices. Had chosen a different alliance. "What exactly has Herbert done for you?" I kept my voice level, professional courtroom voice. Beulah's mouth opened, closed. She had no answer because there wasn't one. "My son lived in my Scottsdale house, the one I'd bought after 3 decades of prosecuting thieves and liars and people who took what wasn't theirs. He'd lived there rentrée for 4 years. 4 years of mortgage payments I still made. 4 years of property taxes and insurance and repairs. 4 years of him promising it was temporary just until he got established. Just until they saved enough for their own place. 4 years of lies. You're alone in that big house." Beulah leaned forward, trying a different approach. Her voice softened artificially, coated in fake concern. "What do you need 4 bedrooms for? You'll die alone there. How I live and where I die is my decision. You're being cruel." The softness evaporated. "We're family. Family helps each other. Family asks. Family doesn't demand." I watched her face transform. The mask slipped. And underneath it, I saw something ugly. Entitlement. Pure naked entitlement. She'd expected me to fold. Expected gratitude for being allowed to exploit me further. Expected an old man who wouldn't fight back. Herbert shifted in his seat, positioning himself closer to his wife. The physical distance between us felt suddenly vast, unbridgeable. He nodded along with her words, silent agreement in every gesture. "You have to admit," he said quietly, "the house is big for one person. I worked 35 years for that house." I met his eyes. "I don't have to admit anything." The question crystallized in my mind as I looked at them across the table. The careful way Beulah had phrased her announcement. The lack of surprise on Herbert's face when I refused. The rehearsed quality of their arguments. They never planned to leave my house, did they? This wasn't about helping Beulah's parents. This was about control, about taking what they believed they were owed, about an old man who should know his place and accept whatever scraps of dignity they allowed him. I set my napkin beside my plate. Movements precise and controlled. The turkey had gone cold on my fork. The wine I'd brought sat unopened in the kitchen. None of it mattered now. Beulah's face darkened as she watched me. "You're a selfish old man," she said, each word dropping like a stone. "You have everything and give nothing." I looked at my son, waited for him to speak, waited for him to remember who raised him, who paid for his education, who gave him a place to live when he needed it. Waited for some sign of the boy who used to be there. Herbert looked away. The silence stretched between us, thick and poisonous. Outside, somewhere in the Tempe neighborhood, children laughed. A dog barked. Normal Thanksgiving sounds from normal families. Inside this room, something had broken that couldn't be repaired. They expected me to break, to apologize, to cave under the weight of their judgment and their certainty that they knew better than me how I should live my life. They didn't know me at all. Beulah leaned across the table, her voice rising. "You're alone in that house. What do you need 4 bedrooms for? You'll die alone there." "How I live and where I die is my decision," I repeated, keeping my tone flat. "You're being cruel," she gestured with her fork, emphatic and angry. "We're family. Family helps each other. Family asks. Family doesn't demand." Herbert cleared his throat again. That same nervous sound. "Dad, you have to admit the house is big for one person." I turned to look at him. "I worked 35 years for that house. I don't have to admit anything. I'm just saying sharing wouldn't hurt you." "I'm not sharing." "That's my final answer." Beulah's face flushed deep red. She stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. "You're a selfish old man. You have everything and give nothing." I remained seated, calm. "I gave your husband 4 years of free housing. I'd say that's something." The truth landed like a slap. Beulah's expression twisted, fury and shame wearing across her features. Herbert looked at his plate, at the wall, anywhere but at either of us. "Old egoist." Beulah screamed, her hand shot out, grabbed her dinner plate. Time seemed to slow as she lifted it above her shoulder, food still on it, gravy dripping. I leaned sideways. The plate sailed past my head so close I felt the air displacement. It exploded against the wall behind me. Ceramic shards scattered across the floor. A piece of turkey slid down the wallpaper. Gravy splattered in a wide arc. Nobody moved. Nobody apologized. Herbert stared at the broken pieces on the floor, expression unreadable. Beulah stood panting, chest heaving, hands clenched at her sides. No remorse on her face, only righteous fury. The silence rang louder than the crash. I straightened in my chair, adjusted my collar. My heart beat steady, calm. I'd prosecuted violent offenders for decades. Seen worse than a throne plate. Much worse. This was theater. Amateur theater at that. Herbert finally looked up. Not at me. At his wife. Some silent communication passed between them. He stood slowly, moved to her side, positioned himself shoulder to shoulder with her, a united front. When he spoke, his voice was cold, practiced. The words came out smooth, like he'd rehearsed them. "Don't call me your son anymore." I met his eyes, waited. "You're not my father." There it was, the final card played. The ultimate manipulation. He expected tears, expected pleading, expected an old man desperate for his son's love to cave under the weight of rejection. "If that's how you want it," I said quietly. Herbert blinked, thrown. That wasn't the script. Beulah's mouth pressed into a thin line. I stood, movements deliberate and controlled. Pushed my chair back under the table. Habits from a lifetime of discipline. Walked calmly toward the kitchen. No rush, no stumbling. My legs were steady. My hands didn't shake. Behind me, I heard Beulah whisper something sharp to Herbert. Heard him whisper back. They thought they'd won. Thought the old man was retreating, defeated. They were wrong. I pulled my phone from my pocket. Scrolled to Alfred's contact. My younger brother, the notary and property lawyer, the one who'd warned me 6 months ago when Herbert and Beulah moved out of my Scottsdale house without giving up their keys. The one who'd said, "Amos, they're playing you. Let me prepare something just in case." I'd resisted then. Hoped I was wrong about my own son. Hoped family meant something. I wasn't wrong. Family meant nothing to Herbert. Not anymore. The phone rang twice. Alfred picked up immediately. "How'd it go?" His voice was careful, controlled. "Exactly as you predicted." I kept my voice steady. "Matter of fact, activate the plan. Phase 1 is complete. I'll start the paperwork tomorrow." Through the doorway, I could see Herbert and Beulah watching me. Their faces had changed. Uncertainty crept in around the edges of their anger. They had expected crying or yelling or desperate attempts at reconciliation. Instead, they got this. A calm phone call, cold efficiency, no emotion at all. Good. Let them wonder. Perfect, I said to Alfred and ended the call. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, looked through the doorway at my son and his wife. They stood close together, united in their certainty that I was the villain in their story, that I owed them something beyond what I'd already given. That my refusal to be exploited further made me cruel. Let them think what they wanted. The game had changed. They just didn't know it yet. I walked toward the front door, passing through the dining room without hurrying. Herbert took a half step forward, some automatic instinct, then stopped. Bula grabbed his arm, held him back. My hand found the doorknob. I turned it slowly, pulled the door open. Cool evening air rushed in, carrying the scent of mesquite and desert sage. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Normal Phoenix sounds. Normal world continuing outside this bubble of dysfunction. Dad. Herbert's voice cracked slightly. I paused, looked back, gave him one more chance to be the man I'd raised, the man who understood right from wrong, the man who wouldn't throw away his father because his wife demanded it. He said nothing else. Just stood there, Beulah's hand tight on his arm, mouth opening and closing like he wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. Too late anyway. I stepped through the door into the November evening. Behind me, I heard Beulah say something low and harsh. Heard the door slam shut. Heard the deadbolt slide into place with a final metallic click. I walked to my car, a 10-year-old Camry, reliable and paid off, and unlocked it with steady hands. Sat in the driver's seat. Didn't start the engine right away. Just sat there breathing evenly, processing. The hurt would come later, maybe. Or maybe it wouldn't. Right now, all I felt was clarity. Cold, crystalline clarity. I'd spent decades prosecuting people who believed the rules didn't apply to them, who believed they could take and face no consequences. My own son thought he could do the same. He was about to learn otherwise. I started the engine, pulled away from the curb. In my rear-view mirror, the rental house disappeared behind a row of palms. I didn't look back again. The victim had died in that house. The person who had left was someone else entirely. Someone who understood that revenge wasn't about anger. It was about consequences. Justice. Making sure people face the results of their choices. Phase 1 complete. Tomorrow, Alfred would begin Phase 2. And Herbert wouldn't see it coming until it was far too late. I didn't sleep much that night. By the time dawn broke over the desert, I was already dressed and driving east toward Scottsdale. The city was quiet at 7 o'clock in the morning. Traffic light on Thanksgiving weekend. Alfred's office sat in a small professional complex off Scottsdale Road. I'd been there before. Notarizations, estate planning discussions. This visit felt different. Alfred had coffee ready when I walked in. 2 cups, black. 3 thick folders sat on his desk, labeled and organized. He looked up, gestured to the chair across from him. I've been preparing for this conversation for 6 months, he said. I sat, took the offered coffee. 6 months? You mentioned they'd been in your house a while. I started documenting. He opened the first folder. Utility bills every month for 4 years. Water, electric, gas, all in your name, all paid by you. The pages spread across his desk like evidence at trial. My evidence, my money, numbers. I'd been avoiding looking at too closely because I didn't want to see what they revealed. Second folder, Alfred tapped it. Property tax statements. You've paid $9,200 annually for that house. They've contributed $0. And the third, rental market analysis. He pulled out printed comparisons. Similar homes in Scottsdale. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, your square footage. Average rent, $2,800 per month. I did the math automatically. 48 months times $2,800 plus utilities, roughly $340 monthly plus proportional property taxes. The number made my jaw tighten. $48,000, Alfred said quietly. That's what you've subsidized over 4 years. The coffee tasted bitter suddenly. I set it down. No rental agreement was ever signed. Alfred already knew the answer. No. I told Herbert he could stay temporarily while they saved money. I heard how naive that sounded now. It was supposed to be 6 months. Alfred closed the folders, stacked them precisely. Legally, they're guests who overstayed, not tenants with rights. That's our advantage. What do you recommend? Eviction notice. Arizona Revised Statute Section 331,368. 30 days for guests without lease agreements. Clean, straightforward. He pulled a 4th document from his drawer. I've already drafted it. I read through the legal language. Formal, Final, no room for misinterpretation. You'll also need a real estate attorney, Alfred continued. Someone who handles evictions regularly. I've got a name, Lewis Hill. Solid reputation. Won't overcharge you. Set it up. Alfred made the call that afternoon. By the next morning, I was sitting in Lewis Hill's office. Modern, efficient, walls lined with property law books. Lewis was younger than I expected, early 40s, but his handshake was firm and his eyes were sharp. Your brother sent me the documentation, Lewis said, getting straight to business. Without a lease, this is straightforward. 30-day notice. If they don't vacate, we file for court-ordered eviction. Timeline notice gets served by sheriff's deputy. Official record. After 30 days, if they're still there, we file. Court date, typically within 5 to 7 days. Arizona favors property owners in these situations. I want this done correctly. No procedural mistakes they can exploit. Lewis smiled slightly. That's why you hire an attorney. I'll handle everything. The retainer was $3,500. I wrote the check without hesitation. December 2nd arrived cold and clear. Lewis coordinated with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. At 2:17 in the afternoon, a deputy knocked on my Scottsdale house door. Herbert answered confused. The deputy handed him the sealed envelope, explained what it was, logged the delivery time. Official, legal, irreversible. Lewis called me 20 minutes later. It's done. He's been served. I marked the date in my calendar. January 2nd, 30 days. My phone rang less than an hour after service. Unknown number. I answered, Dad. Herbert's voice cracked. Please, we can work this out. Don't do this. I kept my tone flat. Professional. You had 4 years. We'll pay rent. We'll sign a lease. Just give us more time. 30 days from December 2nd. After that, court. Dad. I ended the call. The phone buzzed immediately. Text messages. Beulah. I read the first 3. You'll regret this. I'll tell everyone what kind of person you are. You're destroying your family. I blocked both numbers. The phone fell silent. Minutes later, Alfred called. Did they try to contact you? Herbert called. Beulah texted threats. Did you engage briefly? Then I blocked them both. Good. Alfred's voice carried satisfaction. Don't respond to anything else. Let the legal process work. That's exactly what I intend to do. I hung up and walked to my kitchen window. The house was quiet. Properly quiet. Not the oppressive silence of avoiding difficult truths. I'd prosecuted criminals for 35 years. Learned that justice worked when you followed procedure, documented everything. Let the system do what it was designed to do. Herbert and Beulah had 4 years to act like family. 4 years to show gratitude, respect, basic human decency. Instead, they'd shown me exactly who they were. I believed them. The law was on my side now. And the law doesn't care about tantrums or manipulation or social media campaigns. The law cares about contracts, property rights, documented evidence. I had all 3. They had 30 days. The week after I served the eviction notice, my phone started ringing. Not Herbert or Beulah. I blocked them. Other people, old colleagues, distant acquaintances, people I hadn't spoken to in months, asking if I was okay. The first was Raymond, retired from the prosecutor's office 3 years before me. Amos, I saw something on Facebook. Your daughter-in-law posted about you evicting them. Are you all right? I'm fine, Raymond. She's saying you're throwing them out before Christmas, making it sound pretty harsh. I kept my voice neutral. It's a legal matter. I'm handling it appropriately. But is it true? Are you really? You don't have the full story. Trust that I do. Silence on his end. Then all right, just wanted to check. 3 more calls came that day to the next. All variations of the same conversation. All asking questions based on Beulah's version of events. I gave the same response each time. Brief, factual, non-defensive. On the 3rd day, I looked at Beulah's public Facebook profile through a mutual connections account. There it was, 3 paragraphs of carefully crafted narrative. Herbert looking mournful in a photograph, eyes downcast. The post painted me as a wealthy, heartless father evicting his struggling son right before the holidays. Hashtags at the bottom. One Schaaf family betrayal. Yahweh elder abuse. The irony of that last hashtag wasn't lost on me. Comments below range from supportive to skeptical. Some people bought it completely. Others asked questions Beulah didn't answer. I closed the browser without responding. Wouldn't give her that satisfaction. When the next acquaintance called, someone from my old neighborhood, I adjusted my response slightly. Why before Christmas, though? Couldn't you wait until January? The notice was served December 2nd. The deadline is January 2nd. That's 30 days as Arizona law requires. Still seems harsh. You're entitled to your opinion. That shut down most arguments. Facts, not emotion. Legal requirements, not personal justifications. December the 16th, Alfred called. Herbert contacted me. Wants to meet with you. What about? He said to talk, work something out, his words. I considered refusing, then reconsidered. One more chance. One final opportunity for Herbert to speak his piece like a man. Fine. Coffee shop in Old Town. Thursday afternoon, 3 o'clock. He comes alone. Are you sure that's wise? Probably not, but I'll hear what he has to say. December 18th arrived overcast and cool. I reached the coffee shop 5 minutes early, ordered black coffee, took a corner table with clear view of the entrance. Herbert arrived exactly on time. Beulah walked in behind him. My jaw tightened, but I didn't stand. Didn't leave. Just watched them approach. Herbert looking nervous. Beulah defiant. They sat. Herbert spoke first. Words rushing out. Dad, please listen. 6 more months. We'll pay $500 a month. We'll sign an official lease. Legal and everything. Beulah added, that's fair. That's reasonable. Any landlord would accept it. I sip my coffee. Let them finish. Then any landlord wouldn't have given you 4 years rentrée. Herbert's face flushed. We know. We took advantage. We're sorry, but we're asking 30 days court if necessary. Beulah leaned forward. 6 months isn't unreasonable. We're offering to pay $500 a month. I kept my voice level. Market rate for that house is $2,800. Your offer is insulting. It's what we can afford. Then you can't afford to live there. Herbert tried again. We made mistakes at Thanksgiving. We were emotional. Said things we didn't mean. You told me I wasn't your father. You meant it. Silence. Herbert looked at his hands. Beulah's face darkened. This is revenge, she said, voice rising. You're punishing us because we hurt your feelings. No, this is consequence. Learn the difference. She stood abruptly, chair scraping. Other customers turned. You're a bitter old man. You can't accept that Herbert chose me over you. I stood too, calm and controlled. Placed a $10 bill on the table beside my untouched coffee. January 2nd, I said, looking only at Herbert. I walked toward the door. Behind me, Beulah's voice rose higher, accusations blending together. Herbert didn't follow, didn't defend me, didn't do anything except sit there, shoulders slumped, defeated. I pushed through the door into cold December air, walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine. Through the coffee shop window, I could see Herbert still at the table, head in his hands. Beulah stood over him, arms crossed, face red, mouth moving rapidly, probably blaming me for her outburst, for their situation, for everything except their own choices. I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just absolute certainty. They would not leave voluntarily. January 2nd would arrive and they'd still be in my house, still believing somehow this would work out in their favor, still thinking I'd cave under social pressure or family sentiment or Christmas spirit. They didn't understand. This wasn't about holidays or emotions or public opinion. This was about property rights, legal boundaries, and consequences for exploitation. The court would make them leave. Simple as that. I started the engine and drove home through Scottsdale's quiet streets. Christmas lights decorated houses I passed. Wreaths, inflatable decorations, trees visible through windows. Normal families preparing for normal holidays. I'd have a quiet Christmas alone. I'd had quiet Christmases before. Preferred them, honestly. No drama, no false cheer, no pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. My house, my real house, the one I actually lived in, would be peaceful, clean, mine. And come January, the Scottsdale house would be mine again, too. All of it. Legally, finally, permanently. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone, which suited me fine. The day after, Alfred called. You need to see what I found. Can you come to the office? His tone told me everything. This wasn't good news. December 27th, I sat across from Alfred as he spread new documents across his desk. 3 folders this time, each thicker than the last. Coffee steamed between us, untouched. I've been digging into Herbert's finances, Alfred said, preparing for potential court challenges. You need to see this. He opened the first folder, credit reports. 7 different credit cards, all near or at their limits. The numbers climbed steadily. 8,000, 11,000, 13,000. My eyes found the total at the bottom. $47,000 in credit card debt. I kept my voice level. That's just the credit cards. Alfred opened the second folder. Auto loan on that Dodge Charger. He drives. $31,000 remaining. 3 missed payments. Repossession notice dated December 15th. I did the math automatically. $78,000 so far. There's more. Alfred slid bank statements across regular transfers to offshore gambling sites. $12,000 over 2 years that I can track online poker. My hands tightened on the folder edges. Herbert had a gambling problem. How would I miss that? Because you weren't looking, Alfred said, reading my expression. He hit it well. Probably hit it from Beulah, too. Initially $90,000 in debt. The number felt obscene. We're not done. Alfred produced a loan application from the third folder. Beulah took out $18,000 in Herbert's name last year. Personal loan purpose listed as business investment. I examined the signature. Did he know? Alfred shrugged. That signature looks questionable. Might want a handwriting analyst, but I doubt it matters now. He showed me receipts stapled to the back. Instagram influencer courses, marketing seminars, motivational coaching programs, $18,000 in 4 months, all worthless. $108,000. I set the document down carefully. Combined debt. That's catastrophic for 2 people earning what they earn. Alfred paused, his expression darkening further. But there's one more thing, the worst thing. He pulled a separate folder from his drawer marked critical in red ink. Inside was a mortgage refinancing application dated June 2023. My address listed at the top. I scanned down to the applicant information. Herbert Wright listed as co-owner. My vision narrowed. What is this? He tried to refinance your house. $400,000 cash out refinance. Claimed he was co-owner. The bank required ownership documents. He couldn't provide them. Application rejected in 2 weeks. I read through the form again, slower this time. Every line felt like betrayal written in ink. My son had tried to steal my house. Not ask, not discuss, steal. He actually filed this. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Yes. And when it failed? Alfred leaned forward. Think about the timeline. June 2023. Refinancing rejected. By late 2023, they're talking about Beulah's parents moving in, creating more occupants, more claim to the property. The pieces aligned with terrible clarity. It was planned. All of it, I think. So, 4 years establishing residency, then the refinancing attempt. When that failed, they needed another angle. More people in the house makes eviction harder. Strengthens any future claim. I stood, walked to Alfred's window. Below Scottsdale Road carried normal traffic, normal people living normal lives, not discovering their children had been planning theft for years. They never intended to leave, I said quietly. No. And if you died first? Alfred didn't finish. Didn't need to. If I died, they'd have claimed the house was theirs. 4 years of residency, no written agreement, possession is 9/10N of the law. They'd have fought any legal challenge from the estate, tied it up in court for years. I turned back to Alfred. What else do I need to know? That's everything. The debt is documented. The refinancing attempt is documented. The gambling pattern is documented. If they try to claim hardship in court, we have evidence of why they're in hardship. Will we need this for the eviction hearing? Probably not. Eviction is straightforward. No lease, no rent paid, proper notice given. But if they make allegations about you or try to claim some verbal agreement, Alfred tapped the folders. We have ammunition. I gathered the folders, each one a weapon for the coming battle. My coffee had gone cold. I hadn't touched it. They don't know you have all this, Alfred said, walking me to the door. Good. They think they're just fighting an eviction. I looked at him. They're not fighting an eviction. They're fighting a prosecutor with 35 years of experience building cases against people who take what isn't theirs. Alfred smiled grimly. Lewis filed the court papers yesterday. Hearing is January 16th. I'll be ready. I drove home through quiet postal streets. Christmas decorations still hung on houses, looking tired and slightly sad. The season of goodwill and family togetherness had ended. Reality reasserted itself. In my living room, I spread Alfred's folders across my coffee table, reviewed each document again, the credit card statements showing systematic maxing out. The gambling transfers steady as clockwork. The influencer course receipts, each one more absurd than the last. The refinancing application with its audacious lie. My son owed $108,000. My son had gambling addiction. My son had tried to steal my house. These were facts. Documented, verified, Undeniable facts. The Herbert I'd raised, the boy who built model airplanes, who called after exams, who once had integrity, that Herbert was gone, if he'd ever really existed. This Herbert, the one revealed in these documents, was someone I didn't know, someone I didn't want to know. The court date was January 16th, 19 days away. I'd be ready, more than ready. The 2 weeks between New Year and the hearing moved slowly. I reviewed documents each evening. Lewis prepared our case. When January 16th arrived, I dressed in my courtroom suit, the same one I'd worn for 35 years, and drove downtown. I reached the Justice Court at 8:20. Lewis waited near the courtroom door, briefcase beside him. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded. Through the hallway window, I saw Herbert and Beulah arrive in the parking lot. Even from this distance, the tension was visible. Beulah gestured sharply. Herbert's shoulders slumped. They entered the building at 8:45. Beulah's eyes found mine immediately. Pure hatred radiated from her. Herbert wouldn't look at me, just stared at the floor, hands shoved in his pockets. The bailiff called our case at 9:03. Inside, the courtroom was exactly what I expected. Standard civil court. Judge's bench, 2 tables, minimal seating. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Everything was beige and official and impersonal. Perfect. Judge Martinez reviewed the file, then looked up. "This is a forcible entry and detainer action. Mr. Wright, you're represented by counsel. Mr. and Mrs. Wright, you're self-represented." Herbert nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." "Do the defendants wish to respond to the eviction action?" Beulah stood immediately. She dressed carefully. Conservative blouse, minimal makeup, highlighting her eyes for maximum sympathy effect. "Your Honor, my father-in-law promised he'd always take care of us. We trusted him completely." Her voice cracked on cue. "Our children depend on their grandfather. This eviction will traumatize them emotionally." Judge Martinez looked at the file. "How many minor children reside at the property?" Beulah hesitated. 2? "I mean, emotionally, they're like his children." I asked about minor children living at the property. "The file lists no dependents under 18. "I meant, please sit down, Mrs. Wright." Beulah sat, face flushing. First lie exposed within 3 minutes. I kept my expression neutral, but satisfaction settled in my chest. Lewis stood. "Your Honor, I'll be brief. The evidence is straightforward." He submitted exhibits methodically. Property deed showing 100% ownership by Amos Wright. 4 years of utility bills, all paid by plaintiff. Bank statements showing 0 rent payments received from defendants. The 30-day notice properly served December 2 by Maricopa County Sheriff. Signed receipt of service. The defendants are guests who overstayed. Lewis concluded. Arizona Revised Statutes. Section 33,168 applies clearly. The law is unambiguous. Judge Martinez reviewed the documents. The courtroom fell silent except for pages turning. 20 minutes passed. I watched Herbert stare at his hands. Watched Beulah's jaw clench tighter and tighter. Finally, the judge looked up. "I find for the plaintiff. Defendants are ordered to vacate the premises within 5 days, no later than January 21. Sheriff will supervise removal if necessary." Herbert stood abruptly. "Your Honor, please. Can we have 30 more days? We have nowhere to go. You had 30 days. You ignored the legal notice. We thought we could work something out with my father. That's not how eviction law works. The notice was proper. The deadline passed. Motion for extension denied." Herbert's voice broke. "But we have nowhere." The gavel struck. "You should have considered that before ignoring a legal eviction notice." 5 days. Next case. Beulah erupted. "This isn't over. You're a monster." She whirled toward me. "You'll regret this." I stood, met her eyes directly. My voice came out level and clear. "No, I won't. You're destroying your family." I turned to Lewis, ignoring her completely. "When do they need to be out?" "January 21. Sheriff will supervise if needed." Behind us, Beulah continued shouting. The bailiff moved toward her. Herbert grabbed her arm, pulled her toward the exit. Her voice echoed down the hallway even after the courtroom door closed. Lewis gathered the exhibits. "That went exactly as expected." "Yes, it did." 5 days later, January 21 arrived cold and bright. I drove to my Scottsdale house at 9:30. The sheriff's vehicle was already there. 2 deputies standing on the lawn. "Mr. Wright," the senior deputy checked his clipboard. "We're here to supervise the eviction. You just need to observe. Confirm when they're gone." I nodded, staying near my car, keeping distance. At 10 o'clock, Herbert and Beulah emerged with the first load of boxes. A rental truck sat in the driveway. Beulah's sedan beside it. They worked in tense silence, carrying boxes, loading furniture. 2 hours for the first trip. They returned at 1 o'clock for the second load. Less furniture this time, mostly boxes. By 3 o'clock, the truck was packed. Herbert approached me. I straightened, ready for anything. "Dad." His voice was barely audible. "I'm sorry for everything." "Goodbye, Herbert." "Can't we?" "Goodbye." His face crumbled. "I'm still your son." I looked at him. Really looked at him for what I knew was the last time. "No, you're not." From the truck, Beulah yelled, "Herbert, let's go." He turned away. Climbed into the passenger seat. The truck pulled out of the driveway, Beulah's sedan following. They drove away toward Tempe, toward her parents' cramped apartment, toward whatever life they'd built on lies and debt. The senior deputy approached. "Property is yours again, sir." "We'll note the time as 3:17 p.m. He handed me an envelope. "New keys, locks were changed per your attorney's request." "Thank you." The deputies left. Their vehicle disappeared down the street. I stood alone in the driveway, looked at my house, finally mine again. I unlocked the front door with a new key, stepped inside, empty. They'd left nothing behind except dust and silence. The walls held echoes of their 4 years. Arguments I hadn't witnessed, lies I hadn't heard, plans I'd almost fallen victim to. I walked through each room. Living room, kitchen, bedrooms, bathroom, all empty, all mine. The legal battle was won. The house reclaimed, justice served. But standing in that empty living room, I understood something clearly. I'd traded a son for justice. Some might say that was too high a price. I wasn't one of them. The house felt different now. Empty, yes, but also clean. Mine again. I'd spent the first week after the eviction scrubbing away their presence, repainting the master bedroom, replacing the living room carpet. By early February, I was ready for the next phase. Alfred called on February 3rd. Time to talk about compensation. I drove to his office that afternoon. He had spreadsheets ready, organized in neat columns. 4 years, 48 months, every dollar documented. "Market rate for a house like yours," Alfred said, tapping the first column. $2,800 per month times 48 months. I calculated automatically. $134,000 plus utilities, $340 monthly. That's another $16,000. Property taxes proportional share for 4 years, $36,800. The total sat at the bottom of the page, $187,520. "That's half what my house is worth," I said. "Nearly half," Alfred confirmed. "Now, the question isn't what they took, it's what we can realistically collect." "They're broke." "Exactly. Lewis suggests we sue for $50,000. Substantial enough to matter. Small enough that they might actually be able to pay over time. Creates a judgment that follows them for decades." I studied the numbers. They'd stolen $187,000. We'd sue for $50. The difference felt like mercy they didn't deserve. But Alfred was right. You can't squeeze blood from stone. "File it," I said. Lewis filed the civil complaint on February 10th. Unjust enrichment. Arizona law recognized it clearly. They'd received benefit at my expense without legal justification. The filing fee was $349. Service of process was arranged through a professional server. February 15th, both defendants were officially served. The clock started ticking. The phone calls began 2 days later. Raymond first. Amos Herbert called me. "He's desperate to talk to you. Can't you work something out?" "I have nothing to say to him. He's your son." "He was my son. Now he's a defendant in a civil lawsuit. My attorney handles communication with defendants." "That's cold." "That's appropriate." Raymond hung up. 2 more calls came that week. An old neighbor, a former colleague, all with the same message. Herbert wanted to talk, wanted to negotiate, wanted mercy. My response never varied. "This is a legal matter. My attorney is handling it." The call stopped after the 3rd attempt. Word spread quickly enough. Amos Wright would not be moved. February 18th, Alfred received a certified letter. He called me immediately. "Beulah sent me a letter. 3 pages. Threats mostly." "What kind of threats?" "She'll appeal everything. Claims you're harassing them. Says she's getting a real lawyer." He paused. "Should I respond?" "Professionally, let her know appeals cost money." Alfred's written response was 1 paragraph. I asked him to read it to me. "Mrs. Wright, you are welcome to appeal or engage additional counsel. Please note that unsuccessful appeals will result in additional court costs which may be assessed against you. She didn't write again. February 25th arrived cold and clear. I was reading in my living room at 11:40 when I heard shouting from outside. I went to the window. Herbert stood on the sidewalk, illuminated by street light. "Dad, I know you're in there. Please just talk to me." Neighbor's lights turned on. Mrs. Chen across the street peered through her curtains. Herbert's voice carried through the quiet neighborhood, desperate and slurred. I didn't open the door, didn't shout back. I picked up my phone and dialed 911. "There's a man outside my house yelling and refusing to leave." Police arrived in 6 minutes. 2 officers. By then, Herbert was crying, begging them. "That's my father. I just want to talk to him." One officer came to my door. "Do you know this man, sir?" "Herbert Wright, my former son. We're involved in civil litigation. I don't want him. We'll issue a warning. If he returns, call immediately. You may want to consider a restraining order. I'll discuss that with my attorney." "Thank you, officer." They escorted Herbert to his car, watched him drive away. The police report would arrive by mail in 3 days. Report number 2,543,892. Another document for the file. I closed the door, locked it, set the alarm. Through the window, I watched the police cruiser's tail lights disappear down my street. Herbert had become someone I didn't recognize. Or perhaps someone he'd always been, finally revealed. The civil hearing was scheduled for March 5th, 3 more weeks. I went back to my book. The legal system had him now. I could let it work. The week after the midnight incident passed quietly. March 5th arrived, the civil hearing. I met Lewis in the Superior Court lobby at 8:30. He carried a briefcase I hadn't seen before, thicker. "New evidence," he said. "From discovery. You need to see this." We found a bench in the hallway. Lewis pulled out printouts. Email correspondence. The header read, "Future property sale, Scottsdale." Beulah's emails with a real estate agent, Lewis explained. October 2023. I read the first message. Beulah's words. "When my father-in-law passes, the house will need to be sold. Estimated value $850K. I expect to receive at minimum half, possibly more." The agent's response discussed commission rates, market timing, staging recommendations. "She was planning my funeral," I said quietly. "She was planning to profit from it." The courtroom was formal, wood paneling, elevated bench, court reporter. Judge Martinez presided, the same judge from the eviction hearing. He recognized me with a brief nod. Lewis presented exhibits methodically. The financial calculation, the eviction judgment establishing merit, then the devastating new evidence. Exhibit M, Herbert's refinancing application from June 2023, claiming co-ownership. Exhibit N, Beulah's email correspondence with the realtor. Judge Martinez read the emails aloud, his voice hardening with each line. "Mrs. Wright, did you write these emails discussing the sale of property at 2847 Desert Vista Drive?" Beulah pale. "That was just exploring options. Options for selling property you don't own. It would have been family property. It is not family property. It is Mr. Amos Wright's sole property. Did you have permission to discuss its sale?" Silence, then quietly. "No." Their chief lawyer had nothing to offer. No defense against documents against their own words. Judge Martinez reviewed the evidence for 20 minutes. The courtroom fell silent except for papers rustling. Finally, he spoke. "This court finds a clear pattern of financial exploitation. The defendants engaged in systematic abuse of plaintiff's generosity, attempted fraudulent refinancing, and planned property theft following plaintiff's anticipated death." Herbert stared at the floor. Beulah sat frozen. While plaintiff seeks $50,000, this court awards $42,000 in compensatory damages payable at $1,750 monthly for 24 months. Herbert's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, that amount is approximately 45% of defendant Herbert Wright's net monthly income." "I'm aware." Judge Martinez's expression remained hard. Perhaps he should have considered that before attempting to defraud his father. Wage garnishment authorized if payment lapses. Next case, the gavel struck. Outside the courthouse, Herbert approached me one last time. "Dad, I'm sorry for everything." I stopped, turned. "Sorry doesn't pay the judgment. I'll pay it every month. I promise you'll pay it because the court ordered it, not because you're sorry. Can we ever?" "Goodbye, Herbert." I walked away. Didn't look back. 5 days later, Alfred called. "Herbert lost his job." "I see." The auto dealership ran a background check, found the civil judgment, terminated him immediately. I said nothing. There was nothing to say. They're being evicted from Beulah's parents' place, too. Too much drama. Where will they go? Cheap rental in West Phoenix. $900 a month. Rough area. The first payment would be due April 1st. $1,750. On Herbert's new warehouse salary, $16 an hour at Home Depot, it would be nearly impossible. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I heard about the apartment through Alfred, who'd driven by out of curiosity. Bars on the windows, he reported. Cracked stucco, cars on blocks in the parking lot. I didn't ask why he checked. Maybe he needed to see it to know the ending was real. I didn't need to see it. The financial calculation was simple. Herbert earned roughly $33,000 annually now after taxes, maybe $25,000, $2,000 monthly. The judgment payment was $750. That left $250 for everything else. Add their existing debt, $108,000, and bankruptcy became not just likely, but inevitable. Their marriage was fracturing, too. According to mutual acquaintances, Beulah blamed Herbert's weakness. Herbert blamed her greed. They were destroying each other exactly as they had tried to destroy me. The difference was I'd had the law on my side. They had only each other. And that, it turned out, wasn't enough. March 20th, I sat in my living room, my house, my furniture, my peace, and thought about justice. Not the abstract concept they teach in law school, the concrete reality I'd spent 35 years pursuing. Justice wasn't punishment for punishment's sake. It was consequence. Natural, inevitable consequence for choices made freely. Herbert chose to live in my house for 4 years without paying. Beulah chose to plan my death and the theft of my property. Together, they chose exploitation over honesty, greed over gratitude. The law simply made them face what they'd chosen. The debt, the judgment, the garnishment, the bankruptcy, the degraded circumstances, all of it, every dollar, every consequence was theirs. They'd earned it. I turned the page of my book. Outside, the March evening settled into darkness. The desert air carried the scent of creosote and cooling asphalt. My phone sat silent on the table. No blocked calls, no threatening texts, just silence. Finally, the last week of March passed quietly. Then Alfred called with news. They filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 7. It's in the system. I wasn't surprised. With $150,000 in debt and Herbert's warehouse salary, it was inevitable. Alfred forwarded the filing electronically. I scrolled through on my tablet. Case number, court docket, creditor list. Herbert and Beulah's debts itemized with clinical precision. Credit cards, auto loan, personal loans, my judgment. 23 pages of financial ruin made official. What does this mean practically? I asked Alfred. They're broke officially, permanently. Most debt gets erased, but your judgment survives. It's court-ordered restitution. So, they still owe me every penny. $42,000. The bankruptcy just makes it harder for them to hide from it. I filed the document in my growing folder labeled Right Vite. Another piece of evidence that Herbert had chosen his path and walked it to its conclusion. April 8th, an acquaintance mentioned seeing Herbert's Charger on a tow truck. Repossessed. 3 months of missed payments catching up. Alfred confirmed it that afternoon. They're using the bus now, he said. In Phoenix in summer. I imagined Herbert on public transit in 100-degree heat carrying his Home Depot vest. Felt nothing. Just noted the information. Another domino fallen. Through April and early May, Alfred kept me informed. Beulah applied to 17 positions in 3 weeks. No offers. Her resume listed social media consultant and content creator. Nobody took Instagram seriously as work experience. Herbert worked warehouse shifts at $16 per hour. Gross annual $33,000 after taxes, maybe $2,200 monthly. Rent $900. When the garnishment started, $1,750. The math didn't work. They were drowning. May 5th, Alfred called. She left him. Moved back to her parents yesterday. Filed for divorce this morning. Claims he misrepresented his financial situation before marriage. Even now, Beulah was rewriting history, making herself the victim. Herbert was alone now, working 2 jobs, warehouse days, security nights, sleeping 4 hours, eating cheap food, existing without living. This was consequence. This was what stealing from family cost. Mid-May, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Dad. Herbert's voice cracked and desperate. Don't hang up, please. I said nothing. Just listened. I was wrong about everything. The house, Beulah, the money. I destroyed my life. I destroyed us. His voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Can you forgive me? Long silence. I considered my response carefully. You made your choices, Herbert. Every step, you chose Beulah over me. Greed over integrity. Theft over honesty. Now you live with those choices. But I'm your son. No, you're not. I ended the call, set the phone down, stared at it for a long moment, then went back to my book. I sat for a long time after that call. The house was quiet. No triumph, no vindication, just silence. I'd chosen justice over family, principle over blood. Herbert was alive somewhere in this city, working night shifts, sleeping on a mattress in a studio. I could have helped him, could have forgiven, forgotten, moved on. But that would have meant accepting theft, lies, betrayal. Would have meant teaching him that family means no consequences. I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured bourbon. Outside, the desert sun was setting, painting everything gold and amber. Justice, I thought, doesn't feel like victory. It feels like completion, like closing a book you'll never read again. The bourbon burned going down, warm and final. Tomorrow, I'd wake up, make coffee, read the paper, live my life. The ending was also the beginning. The days after Herbert's call, I focused on what I could control, the house, my house. I hired contractors, chose paint colors, replaced what they damaged or worn. By late May, transformation was underway. The contractors painted every room. Desert sand in the living room, sage green in the bedroom, colors warm but neutral, peaceful, like starting over. They replaced carpets, updated fixtures, changed every lock, new deadbolts, window latches, garage code different. A security company installed cameras at entry points, motion sensors, monitoring service. $2,400 for peace of mind. Mid-June when the work finished I walked through each room, touched walls, tested locks. The house felt lighter, clean, mine again in every sense. Total investment $10,400 worth every penny. Early June I met with my financial advisor. I want to donate $50,000 to charity. I said elder abuse prevention. He suggested several organizations. I researched, chose the Arizona Foundation for Elder Justice. They provided legal aid to elderly victims of family exploitation. The donation was anonymous. I didn't want recognition, just wanted my suffering to have purpose. The foundation director called to thank the anonymous donor. I listened without identifying myself, then hung up. Something shifted inside me. The pain meant something. It would protect others. That was enough. Alfred started coming by Tuesdays and Thursdays. We played chess on my patio, drank coffee, sometimes bourbon, talked about books, politics, old cases from the prosecutor's office. Never Herbert, never the lawsuit, just brothers enjoying each other's company. One evening, Alfred moved his bishop and said, "You did the right thing, you know." I did the necessary thing. Same thing. We sat in comfortable silence, watching monsoon clouds build over the mountains. This was family. The family that remained when pretenders were stripped away. July 15th. My bank statement showed a direct deposit. $1,750. Description, wage garnishment. Right. Herbert M. First payment under court order. I stared at the line item. Herbert's paycheck 45% smaller now. A life calculated in deductions. I didn't feel satisfaction. Didn't feel revenge. Just transferred the money to a separate savings account labeled Legal Reserve Fund. The system worked. That was all. Just gears turning, justice automated. August 31st, my 68th birthday. Small gathering on my patio. Alfred, 3 retired prosecutors. 1 old defense attorney who'd become a friend. Steaks grilled, wine poured, stories shared. Raymond, who tried to mediate months ago, asked carefully, "How's Herbert doing these days?" Silence fell around the table. I sat down my bourbon. I don't have a son. Not angry, not sad, just factual. Raymond nodded. Changed the subject. Later, after guests left, I sat alone. Sunset painted the desert gold and red. 68 years old, 35 years as a prosecutor, 8 years widowed, 0 sons, 1 brother, 1 house, 1 peaceful evening. I thought about the journey. Thanksgiving dinner to August sunset. 9 months of legal warfare. Herbert's life destroyed. My family reduced to its honest core. Some would say I was too harsh. That family should forgive anything. But family isn't just blood. It's trust, respect, integrity. Herbert had none of those. So, he wasn't family. Simple as that. I was 68. I had good years left. I'd spend them with people who valued me, not people who saw me as an asset to exploit. That wasn't cruelty. That was wisdom. The desert night cooled. Stars emerged. Brilliant and distant. I raised my glass to no one in particular, to justice, maybe to boundaries. To the hard truth that some relationships cost more than they're worth. Herbert was out there somewhere in this city, sleeping in a motel, waking for night shifts. I could have forgiven him, could have let it all go, but that would have meant teaching him that family means no accountability. Better he learned the harder lesson. Actions matter. Choices define us, and sometimes love means letting someone fall. I finished my bourbon as the last light faded from the western sky. Justice isn't always sweet, but it's always necessary. I stood, walked inside, locked the door behind me. My house, my life, my peace. Tomorrow would come and I would be ready for it.